Hi everyone, this is Vishal Naik here. We are in this session for Tech for Good. Uh, Let me quickly introduce our moderator here today. He's someone who carries more than 2 decades of experience in technology space, has been working with a lot of large transformations across the globe. He's been the head of IT for the organization as well. So welcome Naresh Gour. He's the director at Amdocs and he'll be our moderator for the session today. So over to you, Naresh.
Thank you, Vishal. Good evening, everyone. My name is Naresh Gour, as Vishal introduced. The technology for good has been a topic very interesting for me. And when I heard this topic being discussed on this forum, it was very excited for me to hear everyone's view as well, for sure. So we have two panel members today for the discussion. First of all, let me introduce Mr. Tejinderpalsingh, who's currently a vice chairman for GESIA IT Associations and executive director at SIGNET Infotech Pvt Ltd. At GESIA, he is responsible for events, managing government relations and relations with the other trade bodies. He was the key team member for conceptualizing and organizing Vibrant Startup and Technology Summit, the flagship IT event of Gujarat. So for sure, we will hear his experience from Gujarat a lot. Tejinder now oversees the horizontal and vertical business development, overall business strategy and infrastructure initiatives, and is determined to make SIGNET Infotech a global icon of technological excellence. His expertise in sales and marketing, software development, and business development are embodied by constantly delivering solutions in conjunction with business requirements. He also holds two more positions currently. He is vice chairman for IT committee FICCI Gujarat and member of SME regional councillor at NESCOM. So welcome, Tejinder, on this panel. A very vast experience. For sure, we will hear from you your experience. Our second panel member is Niraj Khinvasara. With a global career in technology, media, and entrepreneurship, Niraj currently leads sales for AT&T Energy sector for sale in Asia Pacific. He handles complex, innovative technologies for the oil and gas renewable segment and is responsible for charting the company's strategic sales roadmap and positioning innovative product. Currently, Niraj is also acting as a chief technology advisor to the World Trade Center, where he helps incubate multiple technology startups and mentor entrepreneurs. So it's a very interesting move. What I see, Niraj, in your profile, moving from the total corporate to the incubation. Prior to this, Niraj led the IBM go-to-market and commercial sales engagement in India, Middle East, and Africa with AT&T. He was pivotal in selling AT&T first universal software-defined NVF-based hardware globally in this segment. Very interesting and I would say, very different areas in this. Niraj has also worked with Citigroup's global financial groups and was instrumental in leading the corporate worldwide digital network transformation. Niraj has a strong foothold in the media and entertainment space. He started a media tech broadcast company by merging IoT technology, video entertainment, and sports to launch Minipod.tv, a handheld TV for viewing live events. So I'm sure that we have such a vast profile of Niraj and Tejinder, completely coming from two different dimensions. I'm also coming from a corporate segment, as Vishal introduced, mainly from the corporate area. I work mainly in the corporate area and kind of automating processes and technology. Technology growth in India, if we look at if we want to talk technology for good in this COVID scenario specifically, we have seen actually in India in last decade two major events which happened and which actually gave quite a different movement to the technology in India as well. One was the demonetization. I'm sure nobody can forget that. Everyone was in the ATM lines, which actually gave in a very different dimensions to overall the digitization of the banking segments, and really brought this to the end user, that how he can really use it. And today in the COVID scenario, that also actually that technology transformation comes to us, delivering really good scenarios. I'm sure that all of us, when we were there in the lockdown period and when we had to buy the vegetables, I'm sure that how people utilize the WhatsApp group to group how vegetable vendors who were actually bringing the vegetables from villages managed to connect with their customers directly, sold it, and had a payment without payment transfer over the mobile. So that's a technology transfer. What we have seen it in the kind of at the end user level, what we see. Of course, there is a lot at the background there, which we see. Many of the startups, big corporates playing a role in this technology transformation area. So, Tejinder, before I jump to any further questions looking at this technological transformation in India, and you coming from such a fantastic role in GESIA and playing a role over there, how do you see this technological transformation from the vision point of view, and what do you see that where it will take India further ahead?
Hi. So, an interesting question on what I see. Now, what is here to see, if you look at, we are going through this COVID-19 scenario, and each one of us in the IT sector always dreamt of implementing an absolute work from anywhere ecosystem or environment. As IT companies and IT managers, many of us tried it. Sometimes we had customer resistance, sometimes we had employee resistance, sometimes we had management resistance. I think overnight, in less than 3 days, most of us implemented work from home or work from anywhere, which IT managers could not do, and COVID-19 implemented it overnight. So that is the transformation that technology can bring in. We ran a survey very recently within our organization and realized that 50% of people actually don't want to come back to work. So that is a transformation that has already happened. And only 15% was very clear that they wanted to come back to work. The remaining 35% also thought that we could conveniently manage ourselves working from home. Now, a lot of things have gone into it. Let's say, whether you talk about mobile technologies or whether you talk about internet availability or whether you talk about good laptops and mobile phones and good apps, like something like this app. I remember 10 years back, I was trying to do LMSs and I was trying to do some group tuition LMS for somebody, and I was struggling to get this kind of a infra to do those tuitions. And today, this is a readily available product which was implemented by most schools overnight in their, like in 10-15 days, schools implemented this transformation within them. So it is an adoption of technology in this COVID-19 scenario has actually acted like an accelerator to many things. For a change, we saw that this time government for the good tried to make things reach to people. And you will realize that everybody in the social lower economic sector who came back very clearly said, yes, we received some goods at least. We never had a scenario wherein people would come back and say they received goods from government. This time they said we received goods from government. You have an app which was launched for good by the government called Arogya Setu app, which possibly tells you that what kind of a vicinity of COVID patients you are in. So see, technology has penetrated. Fortunately, see, smartphones making their presence felt across the city, internet bandwidth being available has changed the scenario. Adoption, let's say, I'll quote an example of somebody, let's say, I'll give an example of somebody we asked who was uneducated, and we asked him to get us some sandwiches in office, and this is about a year-old story. This was a peon who did not know how to read and write. So he came back and said, "Why don't you write this out for me?" And the guy who was sitting with me, he said, "How do you do your WhatsApp messages?" And he says, "Bolke." Now, this is see, there is somebody who is not educated, and he's already adopted speech to text of a mobile phone, which many of us educated ones are struggling to achieve. So that is the depth of transformation that has already started penetrating in. So, like, you have to think on how we have to utilize this transformation and implement it within the social good. So that's something that I am very optimistic about the transformation, and I'm very optimistic that social good can also deploy a lot of transformational technology and innovation in their processes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting use case. What you gave is that WhatsApp. How do you type on the WhatsApp is bulk? Yes, even I have seen when many of the vegetable vendors, when they come, they send in a voice message. Okay, I'm here and I'm there. So it was very interesting to see those scenarios, specifically in this COVID scenario. You said 50% of their employee wanted to come back to office. In my organization, it was a completely different scenario. 86% of the people said that we don't want to come back.
Actually, 86%. Only 15% said we surely want to come, and 35% said maybe, and 50% said yes, we will not come.
Yeah, so somewhere the numbers are tallying. Somewhere the numbers are almost similar. What it's giving us the messages. A very important point on this is as well that managers specifically started finding it as more easier to manage, and time management. Which several of the gurus could not teach us how to manage time. COVID-19 scenario has taught us how to manage time. Okay, coming back to the same area of the technologies, what we are talking about, that how we can make it really good. So certainly, I'm sure that when WhatsApp might have created this voice to text or sending a voice technology, I don't think so that whether they had really thought about the utilization, what the kind of use cases happening right now. And many a times while we are sitting at in a big corporate, we do not actually realize that what is the real end user use case it's gonna be. So I'm sure that WhatsApp guys might have thought, okay, it will help in regional cases, or it will help in some different cases, but not sure that some vegetable vendor will use it to just send a message to WhatsApp to text while just speaking.
If you look at people in the Middle East, drivers and helps, they are using voice WhatsApp messaging for talking to their families, because normal internet calls are not available. So they send a voice message to their family, and then they get a voice message back, and they're using it to talk.
Yes, that's an interesting thing as well. And then while we are bringing that kind of application, and obviously WhatsApp is one of the application which started as a startup, but many of the things we are bringing up as a kind of in a big corporate. And I'm coming to Niraj on that point because I saw his profile. Very interesting that he started with an AT&T, one of the biggest corporate giant of the world at this point in time. And now he is incubating startups. So Niraj, coming back to you on the questions that how do you really look at this corporate experience, how do you transform this corporate experience and encapsulate it for the startup to motivate them, to give them a guidance? Means how difficult or how different you find it?
Niraj, you are on mute. Can you just see the mute down?
Hey guys, can you hear me now? Yeah. Firstly, thank you for having me, Vishal, and thank you, Naresh and Tejinder. Look forward to collaborating with you on this session, and welcome to the crowd. So your question was, yeah, it's been a very interesting journey from a corporate structured standpoint. AT&T is even it's a giant, as you said, and a very structured environment. It has the processes. The one thing that it's taught me, it's 20 years there, is patience, and then I think that virtue of seeing things through long term and not taking a short term view on things all the time. That's something that's interesting to take to the startups as well, right? Because startups, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of things, but things are not very immediately. They need to be planned. They need to be taken to the next step. There are gray areas and things like that. So I would say, one thing that I like to, imbibe in my startup mentoring is if to be patient with startups. To give it time and give it the nurturing and planning, and things will get better. So I think it's a mix, and I do see the difference between a very regimented corporate environment and a startup environment. We're both exciting, though. Thank you.
Thanks, Niraj. So usually in a startup, I'm sure that we are looking at different ideas, and in this scenario, in this condition, currently, if we talk about how technology is growing and how Tejinder talked about his vision on this technology side. So if you look at the current startups, and Niraj, maybe this question is again for you on this. What do you see current startup? Are they really focusing in India, and specifically current startup in India? Are they really focusing in the area where they should have been? Do you really see some kind of creativity coming out which can say that, okay, yes, this is something which will be helping directly a social cause or addressing a scenario which is really happening in this situation currently?
I think we are pretty mature now in our startup cycle than before, right? The startup ecosystem was booming. If most of you remember the .com days, late 2000, 1998. Startups were different then. It got another boost, and we've had many unicorns after that. I think this time India has the cycle's gotten more mature. I'm seeing embracing of technologies, and like technologies like AI, machine learning. I think blockchain. Some of these very enabling technologies, and there's another one. If I get a chance to talk about it, I will a little bit later. But I think 5G is going to be pretty transformational as well. If I am seeing the use of such technologies now more in startup than before, I have started seeing the value chain of startups go up a little bit. So we have now starting to go into that innovation stage. I think it's still early days, but we have started to go on the innovation stage. And if you look at the tech ecosystem around us, the Microsofts, the Google, IBM, AT&T, they've also kind of taken a keen interest in some of the startups around India as well. So I think it's part of using the right technologies, doing some innovation, but also taking guidance from some of the corporations that are here, lending their technology or willing to have that discussion. So I think it's a combination of these different components. Now, coming back to social, I think this area still had a lot of lack of funds and a lack of talent. Last 8-10 years. Now I see, platform-based solutions coming in. Meraklis comes to mind, and more innovation coming in the social space as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Niraj, for putting that perspective. And certainly, we will come back. We will come back on talking about the technologies as well. It's a pretty much interesting, and specifically looking at your experience and vast experience. I believe I'm sure that there are many of the audience who are hearing us over here at this point in time. They would like to have look at the vision, a kind of a vision where we can say that, okay, what kind of a possible cases we can have, what are the situations, what kind of scenarios, and probably Tajinder, I would like to have your opinion on this, as you are sitting on a governance body, and then I will come back to Niraj to take the bottom down inputs on those from the startup mindset as well. That how do you see it? What are the areas at this point in time in India we are lacking ideas, or what kind of use cases you foresee that where we would go and we will we should our startups or our corporate should look at that. Okay, these are the topics areas where we should focus, and where do you think that where you are focusing right now?
Okay. See, when you talk about social good, each one of us at our hearts has always got some section for social good. Now, what are our pain points? Our biggest pain point is, okay, how do I collect money? How do I go and ask for money? That's the first part to do this social good. I alone, if I'm not able to alone sponsor it, I need to collate and make sure that like-minded people can share this for the like-minded things. The second largest pain point is people who trust me to give money. That trust factor is a major element, because money collected for social good has a lot of leakages, and people have this challenge whether their money or their input will be used for the right cause. And then when implemented for the right cause, the effectiveness of that cause. So let's say you're trying to do something, you're trying to, let's say, educate. Are we able to make sure that whatever money is spent is able to change the life of a person over a certain period of time? Are we giving it the enough, are we giving it inputs for that social good that which has enough threshold that we move from one level, we move that person from one level of uneducation to at least some level of education? Because what happens is that traceability is missing. So that's where all the ideas are. So one, your marketing has to be good. Today, all the marketing is dependent on social media, which IT has to contribute. So whatever you want to do, or your tasks have to go live and reach out to people through the IT networks. So your ideas into social marketing on how to take them to social marketing and do crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, that is a very, very important element in this sector. Second is people want to see where their funds are utilized. Like we have these people who plant trees and they give you a certificate that this is the tree that you planted on your behalf. So something like that, the technology today allows people to ensure that the deployed money can be physically seen at some other place. So that transparency, bringing in that transparency is the largest source of idea. So whatever your idea is, you should use technology and innovation to make sure that when you're collecting money for good, you're deploying it for good. So third piece is, let's say the quantum of money, let's say 100 rupee collected. What is the extent for collection? What is the cost of collection, and what is the amount implemented? So people do not want to spend. There are charities which I know of which collect 100 rupees and spend 80 rupees collecting them, and there is only 20 rupees left for the funds. People don't want to join such charities today. They have willingness, but they have resistance to do that. So how do we bring in a operational network which allows charities to show that their cost of collection is minuscule and their cost of implementation is minuscule, whereas the benefit that it will give to people is much higher. So that trust is required. And then effectiveness. Now, if we are taking a student and trying to give him some support in education, can we make sure that we give him support in education over a few years and ensure that we are able to bring him out and change his status standard and make it an earning level potential, a self-earning level potential candidate? So these are some very key areas. These are some pain points of social good. And these are where all the opportunities exist. You can use technologies like CRMs, you can use technologies like social media, you can use crowdsourcing, crowdfunding on social media. So you can use these technologies and you can find out your niche areas for implementation. What areas you want to contribute in. These technologies are the only way in which you can reduce these wastages and improve your collections. I think if we do these properly for 10-15 years, possibly the need of social good will definitely drop down if effectively we are able to reach out with whatever funds that are collected, effectively reach those people for whom they're collected. And they are able to effectively monitor and measure and complete that task. It is like this, that in COVID, people are saying that we made so many dinners, but do those dinners reach the hungry? Today, the technology is available wherein you can monitor that and make sure that they reach the hungry. On the other side, we see hoarders. So this is where the ideas have to come up. The ideas have to come up from the people who are working at the ground root. They need to consult with the technologists. How do I implement a monitoring system, or how do I implement a collecting system? Today, with the wallets, collection of even 1 rupee is feasible without an overhead cost, without a major overhead cost. Maybe at a 1% or 2%, you could collect 5 rupees or 2 rupees or 10 rupees from somebody. That feasibility is available today. And that is what we need to look, that is where we should look at our ideas to come up.
Yes, thanks, Tejinder. So what you talked about, that those ideas should come from those people who are actually working on it. And this is where actually I would like to take it back to Niraj, who is actually working with those guys. Certainly you are also working, your company is also working. Niraj is also working with those startups. So, Niraj, what do you see over there? How the ideas are coming, and how technology is coming up, especially when we see that India is generating a lot of data with regard after the introduction of the Aadhaar card and all the digitization of all the government offices, a lot of data. So, Niraj, how do you see things happening, and what is your recommendations for people, startups? What is your advising?
Like I said, this is the second decade of innovation, and technologies for startups in India, starting from the 1998 kind of period. I think we've done the music startups, the basic startups. They were done in the first decade. I think the challenge now is for a startup is to really have a more profound kind of mission, or a more driven mission. And the second, the other thing that a startup should also look at is how to innovate within that, right? So there are areas like, for example, with higher barriers of entry, which could have more success. For example, in biomed, right? It's an area with COVID. We're seeing there were startup test companies that were really famous, that got acquired, that were not so famous, sorry, and that got acquired. So if you look at health startups, biomed startups, I would say, or even if you're a regular startup, like I think Meraklis done a really fantastic job. When Vishal first came to me, as something as simple and profound as social giving, but having the right technology hooks to it and improvising that experience, right? So you could have a process startup, but if you've taken good technology and good platforms and made made it into something bigger. I think those are some of the areas that that will continue to attract attention and funding and give the startups the growth they need. I think we've done the early startups. Now it's time to look at a little more complex, more niche areas and areas like that. So I think that's where I would focus on.
Okay, thanks, Niraj. And actually,
So,
Vishal wanted to add
coming in
something.
what Niraj said, to jump in on that, of course, Meraklis, but I think we have another pre-recorded talk which is coming up, and Paresh Pranes from who is the CEO of the Ramal Foundation, actually said this, and which is what I love about what Tejinderji said and Niraj as well, is now it is not about tech for implementing projects. It's about moving from projects to platforms for collaboration and other things. And that is exactly what this should be. And I can completely relate. Even simple solutions, what Tejinderji said about WhatsApp this, right? So in fact, just before COVID, we were in Turkey for a business angels forum. And the taxi guy there, and I've never used a Google conversation, and he could talk between us. It's a simple social this thing, right? That can create things for the tourism industry. Although currently it's not the right example, but that's it. And it's similar to WhatsApp. Two, I think, bigger things which tech can do, and of course, Meraklis, we are trying to do that, and fairly successful at the moment in building the platform. But I think moving from projects to platforms is something I think I loved what Niraj said there.
Yeah, and I think Microsoft shares that vision too, right? It's getting very things are getting very complex even in the tech world. We are even on the enterprise space. We are in the second, third cycle of things, and now it's about how 2-3 companies are coming together and delivering a platform-based experience. So it's not just like he's a competitor, you're a competitor, and I'm going to go at it alone. But how can, say, one company and another company, two of them, and startups can take advantage of this ecosystem as well. Partner with 2-3 companies, create that platform experience, and take it, enhance the usage of that tech piece. Yeah.
It's good. Thanks, Niraj. So actually, this particular topic brings me to one of the questions which has been put up on the forum by Tejisha Pradhan, who is asking about actually, looking at it reminds me the current scenario of India and China, and we are in not in a collaborative mode anymore for sure. So she's asking that how can India as a country encourage innovation that is used even outside the country, like so many from the West or even Zoom and TikTok. It became so good example and so adaptive that people looked at afterwards that where it was made when all this confrontation happened and all. Otherwise, people were very, they simply jumped on using it just because the easiness of using it. So probably to question to the both of you, maybe to starting with the Niraj, what do you think? What is lacking in the Indian government body, and then we will come back to Tejinder. That what's the vision from for India on this?
See, I think it's a very good question, by the way. I think not so much from the government body, I would say, but one thing that I think that needs to strengthen up is our focus on marketing and sales. There is many a times there are startups which I've seen which are very, very innovative, have very good tech, product background. But yes, but how do we market it? And I think to Tejinder's Palsingh's point earlier, how do you use social media and make a more impactful marketing campaign out of it? So what I would suggest is if you're getting funded, if you're in Series A or pre-Series A, don't just look at your product and your team and the salaries, and that'll only get you to that's actually dangerous. That'll get you to say step 1, but then you will need an extra infusion to do that marketing. So please pay very close attention. See, the world's gone completely digital. which means even with, I gave a talk yesterday, even with regionalization happening, even with borders being closed and shut, the reality is the world's gone completely digital. You could sit here, you could market anywhere in the world, and it's about how do we put the right budget, hire the right talent. Also, I see a lot of gaps in companies not paying attention to their branding. So you've done 80-90% of the work, but go that extra mile, get the right resources on marketing and branding and your sales effort, and do that well. I think some of the startups in the West do that really well. They may not be really good startup, but they have a really good reach out program as well. So I think that layer would add more to a startup, and then perhaps we could get more global startups coming out of India as well.
Yeah, so all what you're saying, majorly it's all about the adaptability and how we design the product so that it's more adaptive to the consumer rather than looking at the regional perspective. Tejinder, your view on this, please.
See, what happens is when a child is young, it requires some protection. When you look at China and when they brought in these technologies or they developed these technologies, they made sure that there was a blockade from the developed technologies, and their people were forced to use only their technologies, which made sure that over a period of time they were able to evolve them to a great level. Now, if I am offering an A product and you are trying to compare it with a mature product of the best order, and you're not willing to support the A product, over a period of time, the larger company and the non-supported product will die down. India has not been able to develop software products because if let's say, I'm happy that at least in this event, we have gone ahead and used a domestic product called AirMeet instead of using a Zoom or something else. So somebody has to come and support it. Even if the product is a few percentage points not similar to Zoom or not similar to a Microsoft Teams, it still requires that support of companies like you and me to come out and be able to flourish. Now, what happens is governments also play a major role by ensuring that their teams are insulated. Let's say if governments come up and say that our IT purchases, we will make sure that at least 60% or 70% of indigenous products are used when we are buying our IT products. It will make sure that investments also come, and it will make sure that we also are able to develop something. But the moment the selection criteria comes, we may not have the best features on day one, but that sustenance period is required. China gave it to their industry, and it is time that we also give it to our industry to develop and compete. We need to protect our industry. It is important that we need to make sure that wherever we are spending our dollars, we need to do anti-dumping duties there, and we need to make sure that our industry is supported by way of subsidies or incentives to build those products here. And I'm sure if the right economics matches, money will come into those sectors and people will definitely invest and build those products. Give them some time for reaching the world-class level. That support is required. Let's say, when I talk about 90s, when India and China, both economies were opening up, Indian economy asked the world to come and sell to us. The Chinese economy was very clear. They said, you come and build here and then sell to us. Today, they have become the builders for the globe. And we are still struggling, or we become consumers. So we need that industry protection is required to make sure that we are able to deliver that. And I think the startup ecosystem coming up, like Niraj has probably invested a lot of time in that area, but it has taken over a decade to even put its foot right. We are just still at phase 1 and phase 2, and the right kind of ideas, because the idea teams also, even in idea stage, get lost in 6 months to 12 months or 1 year or 2 years. And like the number of startups which are struggling to reach even the first level of investment stages, and then they leave their startups and go and try and find jobs in different companies, is much higher than the number of startups who are even able to raise first level funding. So we need to bring in that support system and support it. That's the primary thing.
Naresh, I'd like to just come in to what Tejinder said. I'm so sorry. I'm so passionate about technology and business. I think one of the key reasons, and for everyone on the call also, we have evaluated 10 platforms, okay, and we were almost finalizing a European platform. And they were very passive in their approach. Amazing platform, this thing, including Zoom and all other this thing. They're a fabulous platform. But we were actually looking not from a boycott perspective, but looking at a company which can support and serve. I think Airmeet is a fantastic product. We are trying to compare it to a product which has been done for 4 years and 5 years. And to tell you the kind of people we have in Indian startups, they were supporting us till 3 a.m. in the night yesterday. Okay, and this is the kind of support our startup system, and we need to do actually. And it's not just about a boycott call on the social media.
See, they will support you throughout the night also. We need to support them by allowing them to support us.
Absolutely.
And not drop the baton.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting point that every child which is growing needs some hand holding, and this hand holding needs to be provided by the industry, not only by the government. So I completely agree on that.
It is exactly like this, that the other day my neighbor came in and told me that his daughter makes very good tea now, and she's practiced it during COVID. And I took an exception and went to enjoy that cup of tea to encourage the child. Now, that encouragement is required in business also. Business also has startup children.
Yes, exactly.
Unless they make it twice or thrice or 4 times, how will they learn? If we have gray hair, the industry needs to make sure that we are able to support those guys. Somewhere down the line, some preferential treatment, at least if not in pricing, in giving them the right opportunity to contest is required.
Yes, certainly. Completely agree. Niraj, do you have any viewpoints specifically on this point?
So, can you just repeat that a little bit again?
Yeah, the question was that how India can encourage startups specifically to compete with the global. And as Tejinder said, what his point was that we have to handhold the startups. So, do you really think that these startups really need a handhold, or it's a matter of maturity of the product?
I think, from a tech standpoint, if I look at the tech standpoint, India is pretty much up there. We developed tech for, I think the last I checked, we have 4,26,000 developers, software developers. The greatest number of software development talent pool is in India. So we definitely are making tech for the world already. I think the same people or newer startups have access to the same quality of teams over here, so we can definitely make really world-class products, right? I don't think the issue is about making the right product so much. I don't think it's about. I think we can make very, very good products. I think I'm more focused, and I bought this earlier about softer skills, the right coaching towards how to move through the different stages, the right marketing models, and the government support. I think the Startup India program was really good to kickstart some of these startups. I think the government could give more incentives or simply access to capital, even, which is one of the hardest things for startups in the beginning. So I think it's a combination of a couple of things, but if some of these factors come together, we'll see a little more success and hopefully take some of these startups to the next level.
While we are taking on that, I would like to take one of the audience question as well over here, which actually completely relates on that. Nivedita is asking the question that what are your views on the status of digitalization and technology and its reach to the people at the last mile, because it is where the social good needs to reach the most.
I think it's a very, very, very important question, Nivedita. Basically, see, the technology is rampant and available on the, if I can call it a pyramid, the top Fortune 500, and you come into the mid segments, then you go into the small and medium segments. But you know, I mean, look at India. A couple of years ago, we were the most expensive broadband country in the world. Believe it or not. I mean that for a growing nation was not good. I think you know, Prime Minister Modi took a look at that. There was some measures that were brought in, and I think per megabit rates have now started going down. I think internet connectivity. I'm involved with a startup. I'm talking to them on Friday. They're focused mainly in providing internet connectivity tier 3 cities, which I loved, right? So it's the foundation of technology, or you know, I would say the digital oxygen is internet. If we can get that digital oxygen into the smaller towns, into the smaller cities, you know, earlier I was hearing examples about WhatsApp being used by many of the vendors that serve the building. I think if you can get that basic digital digital oxygen into tier 2, tier 3 cities, and you know, most of cloud's already available now, so you don't need expensive hardware or expensive things on the premises anymore. As long as the net connectivity is there, many of the applications can now be used being cloud-based, and I think it's going to have a very big, profound effect on the you know, tier 2, tier 3 areas as well. And then I have a couple of examples on the social side as well. But I think, you know, that's where I'm seeing things going. Does that answer your question, Niveta?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I believe currently we have the reach to the data currently in India is the cheapest one available. Almost many other things are moving to the mobile platform as well. So I'm hoping that, you know, that will very quickly answer, and pushing anything in India is becoming much more easier nowadays.
I agree.
So yeah. So the next question I'll take from Mohammad Afroz from Bihar. I love to see that, you know, people are joining from so remote in this platform. Apart from service delivery, what are the other innovative technology which can help people to access information that directly affects them? Oh yeah, that's a lovely question. Probably I'll put forward to you, Tejinder, on this, specifically when you and your company is focusing on these innovative technologies areas. Services, for sure, India is known for giving services, and we have been providing services from remote places as well. But technology areas.
See, I'll like to bring in attention towards a government program of e-governance. Now, if you look at e-governance, a lot of things, small things that for which people used to go to government offices today have been digitized, and you can get those things very easily online. So it's not that services, government delivered all the passes for COVID travel online. We never went to see, like, while we were required to get passes approved from specific authorities like district magistrate and stuff, there was no district magistrate visible to anybody. All the pass applications were made online. So that kind of penetration of the system, of course, the whole campaign of IT usage was possibly started by railways by bringing in a IRCTC ticket booking system. But if you look at it today, a sabji wala accepts a wallet payment. Government accepts an online application, which is done by anybody sitting in a very rural area. Also, it is not that it is only urban centric. So penetration of products and services is happening across the nation also. Like, yes, we are a large exporter in terms of IT services as a country. But if you look at today, Ahmedabad, we talk about Gujarat, and we see major companies focusing either around platforms or around products. The new ones that are coming in are focusing around products or platforms, and many of them are focusing on domestic products. They are not looking at international market as their markets. Now, so that change has already started happening. I think there are enough platforms available where your next door neighbor can sell a product online, and you could possibly order from any part of the country and get that product in-house at home with use of technology. Calling a car home or picking up a bike and driving to the next location is today in thing. So possibly most of us do not realize that these technologies have already penetrated our systems and they are maturing and they're taking up the next leaps. It is not that we are only doing IT services now.
Yes, certainly. Gone those days when you used to call to coordinate where you are standing to get the taxi driver.
Right.
And probably he would be searching for you in the lane behind you and will not recognize. Now you just give the GPS coordinates and you get into it. So yes, the technology has penetrated our lives a lot.
You can even look at those scenarios in Delhi wherein the taxi offices only used to have a landline phone which would not get connected.
Oh yes, probably that taxi office now disappeared.
Yes.
Okay. So looking at with the innovation, what you talked about the Gujarat scenario, and Gujarat is a good hub for manufacturing companies as well. So I would like to take the next question from Tajista, who is an industrial product designer. As I see in his title, Tejista Pradhan is asking the question that how can the manufacturing in India be made more flexible in order to drive more innovation, drive a small scale startup or any new initiative? What is your point of view and experience on that?
This is for me or Niraj?
I can take it to Tejinder. Go ahead, but I have some comments on it. Yeah.
Okay. See, manufacturing industry has also started accepting a lot of flexibility. People are investing into equipments and machines that can change production courses very fast. 3D printing is definitely something as a technology which is looking up very, very aggressively. Somewhere down the line, that support from the industry. See, it's a chicken and egg story. What will come first? But industry is maturing. Yes, there's a certain level of industry which needs to be dragged along or pulled up. But that change has started happening very, very clearly. That change has started happening, and the new, like somewhere down the line, we are producing more IT engineers, and other engineers who are not IT are also picking up IT jobs. But somewhere down the line, we need to send them back to the engineering units and try and make them implement engineering solutions and do something on that side. That's very, 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 very important. I think we need our academia to get involved aggressively into engaged into producing those kinds of mindsets so that people can take up entrepreneurship in those areas also. Because today, 80% plus, or I can even say 90% plus startups want to do startup in IT space.
Yeah.
Naresh, just a quick time check. We've got 3 minutes to, as in for the next session.
Yeah, so just let's take a Niraj input on this point. Yeah. And if we are left with time, we might take one more question. That's it.
Okay, I'll go really quick. To add to Tejinder's point, I think manufacturing. There's one word that I would like to kind of bring out, and if people are looking at manufacturing, they should get accustomed to Industry 4.0, right? So it's a combination of IoT, robotics, digital twins, and using 5G technologies. I think if there's one area that's ripe for innovation right now in this digitized world that we are moving in, it's going to be manufacturing. I think Indian companies can already the big German car manufacturing, the big auto manufacturers are actively implementing it across, even in Pune, right? But for the smaller manufacturing companies, earlier in my talk, I did mention that a lot of these technologies are moving cloud-based and making it more affordable. So to gain a competitive advantage, you could look at some of these technologies and grow further. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Niraj. Vishal, do we have one more minute? I believe there is an interesting question over here. I do want to put it forward in front of
We
Niraj
have
and Tejinder.
absolutely one more minute, just 1 minute.
Is
So
there
I'll
any?
ask the next one if you can borrow two
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah. So Dilip is asking the question: is there a tech idea that could help manage video conversations, say with school or farmers in tier 3 markets, with the current broadcast penetration in the country?
School of?
With schools or farmers in tier 3 cities?
Is there a current technology available?
Yes.
Is that the question? Yeah, there is. The one I just spoke to last week, in fact, is a platform-based exchange, and what they've done is many times the crop, when the farmers produce the crop, it doesn't reach in the right way to the end user. By the time it reaches to the end user, the compensation the farmer gets is not valid. So he's I met a team that's created an agri-tech platform that would let farmers produce, advertise it in the exchange, and that now the exchange is being promoted around the world. So I had a small group of farmers making lychee is now being exported to England using this platform. So that is a good example of innovation on the agri-tech side. So yeah, there are technologies that are available into the villages and into smaller cities as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Niraj and Tejinder, for your sharing your experience.